I want you to think about this for a second. I've been thinking about it for a while. Let me give you a second. Have you ever wondered why it is that millions, and I mean millions, millions of young men, Gen Z, are hanging on the words of people like Jordan Peterson, Charlie Kirk, and Joe Rogan? Think about that. A Canadian clinical psychologist, a political firebrand kind of evangelist, and a MMA podcaster. What do these three diverse, this motley crew have in common? Why have they gained such an attraction, such a following from this up-and-coming new generation, especially among young men? Well, I think they've tapped into something that many people have missed over the past several years. And I think they're not the first to tap into it. A long time ago, before there was even YouTube or Instagram or, followers, there was a guy by the name of Paul. And Paul tapped into this deep ache, this yearning that all of us have in our life. So let's listen to what he says as he speaks to us from his prison cell many years ago. He's writing these final words to his protege, Timothy, these final words of mentorship. 2 Timothy verse 4, verse 6. If you have a handout, you can follow along and fill in the blank. If you didn't, drink your coffee, it'll keep you awake. All right, here we go. Oh, by the way, when I first started preaching and stuff years ago, and I'd be preaching up here and just sweating and hallelujah, right? And I look out and see someone asleep. I used to get really mad, like, what are you doing, man? What are you doing? Now, when I see somebody asleep right now I'm preaching, I go, I get it. Enjoy it, right? I'd be doing this anyway. True, it's true. Here we go. For I am ready to be poured out like a drink offering, and the time for my departure has come. Paul knows he's on the 18th fairway. He knows his time is up. He knows he's about to be executed. He said, I've been poured out like a drink offering. Not burned out, poured out. They would have these animal sacrifices and burnt offerings in the Old Testament and these strange ancient ceremonies, and they would pour out a drink offering, pour out an expensive glass of wine or something like that as a sacrifice. I'm being poured out. Then look at verse 7, these iconic phrases here by Paul. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. Now there is in store for me this crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will award to me on that day. Not only to me, but to all who have longed for his appearing, all of us who are longing to see him. What's Paul saying here? His translation is, listen, he's saying, I've done it. I've done it. I fought the good fight. I've endured the race and stayed in the race. I have kept on keeping on despite all odds, pain, persecution, prison. I'm still standing. All that awaits now is that ceremony, like the Olympic ceremony, and they put the gold medal and they play that national anthem. That's all that awaits Paul. He's done it. He's fulfilled the goal of his life. Isn't that great? And this is the goal of life. We don't know when we're going to die. We don't know when it's our time. Sometimes you have the grace to know, as he did, but a lot of times we don't. But Paul knew this was it. And he knew that life was a marathon and not a sprint, right? That life was a championship fight, 15 rounds like back in the day, not a street brawl skirmish after school. Joe Rogan, Charlie Kirk, Jordan Peterson, What have they tapped into? They've tapped into this. They've tapped into the reality that so many people in our society, especially young men coming up, have lost their way. They've lost a sense of meaning and purpose. They've lost the why. Jean-Paul Sartre said this. He said, no finite point has meaning without an infinite reference point. All the finite points, your life, your job, your family, your friends, your successes, your failures, your this, your that, all of that, your money, all of that, your friends, all of that, your relationships, all of that, these finite points have no meaning if there's not an infinite and ultimate reference point. If there's not a why, if there's not a purpose that undergirds everything that we do. I love this verse in Acts chapter 13. It's one of those verses you kind of skip over when you're reading the Bible, kind of like, whatever. But here it is, Acts 13:36. It's pretty cool. It says, now when David had served God's purpose in his own generation, he fell asleep. That's just the way they say he died. David, he knew a little bit about fighting, didn't he? Boom, he knocked out the heavyweight champion of the world, Goliath. Bang, crashed him. He went to battle, he was a warrior. He fought the good fight. He ran the good race until he got off course and messed up his life, and he had a crazy dysfunctional family and lost his child Absalom and committed adultery with Bathsheba and came back and asked forgiveness and set up a murder, craziness. But David kept on repenting and kept on seeking God, so it could be written about David in this chapter in Acts 13 when he had fulfilled God's purposes for his life. He died. David, like Paul, like Moses, like Abraham, had a big enough why to sustain the how and the pain and the grueling nature of this race called life. Nietzsche said this, he said, he who has a why to live can bear almost any how. He who has a why to live can bear almost any how. The question is not, is your life going to be tough? Is it going to be hard? Is it going to be challenged? The question is, do you have a big enough why to get you through the hardship? Do you have a big enough why to help you not only survive, but to thrive in the midst of pain and persecution and the fights and the races that you'll enter? That's the question. Paul knew that why. He had that experience with God when he experienced God's mercy and forgiveness on that Damascus road as he was going the wrong way, and God turned him around and said, no, Paul, you're doing it wrong. Go this way. Start loving me. Start loving others. Start telling others about this good news. And Paul said, I've done that. I finished this race. I fought this good fight. I've kept on trusting God. Fight. What is he telling Timothy? What is he telling us here today? You're going to have a fight. You got to fight. When I think about fighting, the first fight that comes to my mind is the 1970 fight in Madison Square Garden, New York City, between the heavyweight champion of the world, Muhammad Ali, and the challenger, Joe Frazier. It was called the fight of the century, okay? I was so fired up as a little kid, my brother and I, who was gonna win that fight. We were so much pulling for Joe Frazier because at the time we lived in South Carolina and Frazier was from South Carolina. And that fight was a grueling fight. It went 15 rounds. In the 15th round, Joe Frazier knocked Ali to the canvas with that left hook. But Ali, being the champion that he was, got back up. They continued to fight, and at the bell, it went to the judges' scorecards, and Frazier became the new heavyweight champion of the world. Now, I remember looking at Sports Illustrated that next week they had color photos of both Ali and Frazier. They were so beaten up. I mean, Ali had a broken jaw and Frazier had bruises all over their face. I'm sure they both went to the hospital after that fight. But I thought about that fight as a paradigm of any fight. When you go into a fight, you can expect you're going to be broken. When you go into a fight, you can expect you're going to be bruised. When you go into a fight, you can expect you're going to be hit. As Mike Tyson said, everybody has a plan until they get hit in the mouth. That's a fight. And you're going to get knocked down to the ground, even if you're the greatest of all time, like Ali, but you have to get back up off the canvas. You can't throw in the white towel. You got to keep on fighting. You're going to have all kinds of fights in your life. Keep on fighting. Get back up when you get knocked down. Now, fortunately for us here today, Paul, the great mentor of mentors, has yet another sports analogy for us in this passage. 2 for the price of 1. Isn't that great? He starts talking about a race. And he's talking about that ancient race, that marathon, that 26.2 miles. Not a sprint, a race, a marathon. If you run a marathon, what can you expect? Well, expect, first of all, that you're going to be a whole lot of runners around you. And when you're running that marathon, you're going to be tempted to look to your right, look to your left, and wow, look at how they're running. Wow, where do they get those New Balance? Wonder what they're drinking. Why are they running faster than me? Should I be running and keeping up with them? And you start comparing and getting jealous and being envious. And you'll be tempted not to run your race, but to run their race. God has a race marked out for you, Hebrews chapter 12. A race for you. Run your race at your pace. Looking to God for grace. Run your race. But your race is not her race. It's not his race. It's God's race for you. So in a race, you're tempted to look to the right, look to the left. Man, look to God. Look to what he has on your plate in your race. In a race also, you're going to get dehydrated. They tell you if you run the Houston Marathon, I don't know why, but they say to always drink water or Gatorade at every hydration station. Even if you don't need it, drink it, because you're going to need it later on. In life, the Christian race, you're going to get dehydrated. You're going to get parched. You're going to get just worn out. We need daily to receive that living water that Jesus talks about in John chapter 4, that living water that can give us life, that living water of being replenished by the Spirit of God daily, 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 to keep us in the race. What else is going to happen to you in this marathon, in a real marathon and in a marathon of life? Well, at some point, mile 15, a lot of people talk about mile 20, you're going to hit the wall. You're going to hit the wall where your calves say, quit. Your quads say, no mas. Your mind says, what in the heck are you doing trying to run 26.2 miles? Humans aren't made for that. And you hit this wall physically, psychologically, emotionally, maybe spiritually, and you don't want to finish the race. It's the wall. In your life, in this race that God's placed you on, his race, with his purposes, you're going to hit a wall, maybe more than once. And at the wall, you begin to discover that what worked last week and last year doesn't work today. At the wall, you begin to have questions. You begin to have doubts. You begin to experience uncertainties. You seemingly get overwhelmed all at the wall. You're wondering, how can I get over it? How can I get around it? Can I dig under it? And you're hitting against the wall. You feel like you can't move forward. The ancients called this the dark night of the soul. If you're at the wall here today, or if you hit that wall in the future, don't panic. This is normal. This is a normal Christian life. But what you do at the wall and what I do at the wall matters greatly and deeply to God. Because what God is doing to you at the wall and what can happen at you at the wall is a deep transformation of your heart and mind. You come to the end of yourself many times at the wall, but when you come to the end of yourself, many times you become to the beginning of God. The beginning of God, a new relationship or a new level that God puts you on. So we have to keep on running. Joseph, his story takes up 1/4 of the book of Genesis. A lot of us know Joseph's story. Let me give you a little quick thumbnail about Joseph. He's a guy, he's born with great favor, he has great talents, he has great dreams. His brothers don't like him, so I think, hey, we're gonna send him off and sell him off into slavery. You think you have a dysfunctional family? It's pretty bad. Joseph had it bad. They sent him off to be a slave in Egypt, a foreign country. He didn't know the people, didn't know the language, didn't know the custom. They throw him in a pit. They tell his dad that he's dead. Joseph winds up as a slave in Egypt. He keeps working hard. He keeps believing in God somehow, some way. Then he gets falsely accused of some type of sexual harassment. He's tried. He serves, then he's thrown into prison and serves a 10 to 13-year stretch in prison. But even when he was in the pit, or when he was a slave, or when he was in prison, Joseph never lost his why. He never lost his sense of purpose. He never said, wow, God's ripped me off. I'm gonna do whatever I wanna do, right? No, he said, God still has a plan for my life. God still has a purpose for my life. No matter how dark, how tough, how grueling, how hungry he was, how lonely and isolated he was in the prison, he still believed God had a plan. That all these people meant it for evil, but somehow God was gonna use this for good. And Joseph hung on to that, and at the age of 30, boom, he gets sprung out of prison. He's elevated to become president of the most powerful country in the world at that time. How? He kept on trusting. He kept the faith. Keep on trusting. Even when things are dark, even when things are painful, even when the heat is on, I'm gonna keep on trusting. God, I don't understand it. God, it's really confusing. God, this really hurts, but I'm gonna keep on trusting you because you are the God who loves me so much that you sent your son to die in my place for me so I can make it through this wall. Yes, we can clap. I can make it through this wall. The greatest wall moment in the history of the world, Christ on the cross. My God, why have you forsaken me? As darkness covers the land, what's going on? What is God doing? Christ is becoming sin. He's taking the rap and the guilt and the shame for us at that wall experience we call the cross, that we could be forgiven, that the world one day could be reconciled. It's amazing. Amazing. So in our race, when you hit the wall, God, we gotta keep on trusting that God is still working in my life. Keep on trusting him. No matter the pain, no matter the obstacles, I'm gonna keep on trusting him. Hebrews 12, 1 and 3 says what? We are to focus not on our failures, not on the past, not on our pain. We're to focus on the author and the finisher of our faith, Jesus Christ, who for the joy set before him endured the cross, taking on its shame. We focus on the finisher. You know, the good news is God knows where you are this morning. God's got the GPS, the Life 360 on you, students, better than your parents do. He's got you. God's got you. He knows what you're struggling with. He knows your hopes, your dreams. Some of us here right now, boom, you're on the mountaintop. You're like, woo, hallelujah, things are great. My team won yesterday. My grades are great. My life is great. Money's pretty good. Life's pretty good. Kids are pretty good. Man, things are firing. It's great. What did Jesus say? Rejoice with those who are rejoicing. And to me, one of the signs of spiritual maturity, if you would, is can you be happy at someone else's success? When someone else gets a promotion, when someone else is elevated, when someone else takes it to the next level, can you be happy? Rejoice with those who are rejoicing. Some are on the mountaintop. Others of us are in the valley. We're in the race, but we're in the valley. Some of us are in the ditch. Some of us are on the canvas. God knows where you are. God knows where you are. You're not alone in the ditch. You're not alone on the canvas. A lot of people around you have been there, done that. You're not alone. Some of us here have never really entered the race. I mean, you're in the human race. Maybe you say, I'm in the rat race, but you've never entered the race that God has for you. Tapped into God's plan, His purpose for you. And you need to take that step this morning to say, hey, I am entering God's race. I am entering into a relationship with God that I've never had before. And you need to take this step today. Others of you here have stopped running for some reason. You've stopped the race. You say, man, I used to pray. I used to come to church. I used to be involved. I used to serve. And God's calling you to get back in the race and to keep on running. Others of you, you're salty dogs. You're steady runners. You got the scars and the bruises and the broken bones to prove it. You're in the fight. You're in the race. And God says to keep on running, keep on fighting, keep on trusting Him as you're serving Him and making a difference in the lives of others. Keep fighting. Keep running. Keep trusting God, even in the darkness. I was really fortunate growing up to have a bright light in my life. My mom's dad, my grandfather, who we call Buddy, was a godly man. Like Paul, he didn't have the normal trappings of success, a big house, money. No, never had that. He was a teacher. He was a coach. Had a small business at one time. But he was a godly man. He was also a fighter, a wrestler, and a runner. He ran track for Indiana University. And while he was at IU, he ran against Ohio State, who had a track star by the name of Jesse Owens, who won 4 gold medals in the Berlin Olympics. I asked my grandfather, Buddy, I said, hey, Buddy, what's the closest you ever got to Jesse Owens in a race? He goes, oh, that's easy. It's when the referee said, on your mark, get set. So he ran at IU, he graduated, he came back, he was a teacher, a coach. And when I was just a young boy, a toddler, my grandfather had a stroke. And so all my life, I can remember he was a paraplegic. He was in a wheelchair. And his voice would stammer when he would talk, or we'd be asked to pray at dinner. And he still had this incredible joy about him. It's joy about it. And all of our cousins would go to him and learn from him, and he would get down on the floor and show us these wrestling moves and stuff like that. And he would talk to us about God, and he had this chair that he would sit in and watch TV, and had a TV tray. If you can remember those, young people, you can Google that later. And on the TV tray, he had a Reader's Digest, he had a TV guide, and he had a black Schofield study Bible, and nothing went on top of that Bible. He was a godly man, served in his church for decades. And I remember, I was about 15 years old, I went to see him in Mississippi, and he was very sick, he was in the bed, and we were leaving to go back to our home, and we said, buddy, hey, we'll see you later, we'll see you later. And he just shook his head, he couldn't talk. He just took his crooked hand and just pointed it up to heaven, as if to say, no, you're not gonna see me. My life's been poured out. I've run the race. Time passed, short time passed. We got the phone call that he had died. So we drove all the way back to Mississippi, and I remember at his funeral in that small chapel, it was packed to overflowing, standing room only. Not because he was a successful man, but because he was a godly man who ran the race so well. And I think that God is so gracious in our life, whether it's a grandfather, whether it's a friend, whether it's a coach or a teacher or someone who comes into your life, you can say, wow, that's where I want to go. That's what I want to be like. I want to be able to say, I have fought that good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. I have kept trusting God. And now that award ceremony awaits me. What a life. What a goal. What a purpose that God gives to each and every one of us.